Welcome to The Explainer. We're diving straight into a subject today that is just a massive leap forward for pediatric eye health. If you've been following optical engineering lately, you already know that managing childhood myopia has evolved way beyond simple vision correction. It's a whole new world out there. Today, we're going to set the stage for a completely objective, data-driven comparison of the two most advanced non-invasive myopia control lenses on the market right now, Essilor Stellest 2.0 and HOYA's MiYOSMART IQ. We are strictly sticking to the clinical data and the optical designs to see exactly how these second-generation marvels are pushing the absolute boundaries of what is possible. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the next generation. Second, optical design upgrades. Third, clinical trial efficacy. Fourth, material and range specs. And we'll wrap it up with the final verdict.
All right, part one, the next generation, evolving beyond the baseline.
Now, we all know the first generation of these lenses was revolutionary, right? But this second generation, it significantly raises the ceiling. Both Essilor and HOYA have essentially taken their proven baseline mechanisms, which, remember, rely on creating myopic defocus to project a signal in front of the retina and tell the eye to stop growing, and they've heavily amplified it. They didn't reinvent the wheel here. Instead, they engineered much stronger, more robust versions of their tech to create highly effective therapies.
Moving right along to Section 2, Optical Design Upgrades, HALT MAX versus DIMS TED.
When you look at their different engineering approaches, Stellest 2.0 really focused on expansion. They expanded their treatment zone from 11 rings to 12, creating 169 microscopic lenslets in total. And they increased their asphericity, which just means more complex surface curves, to really boost the power. MiYOSMART IQ took a different route. They directly increased the diopter power of their defocus segments from plus 3.50 to plus 4.50. On top of that, they added a new inner ring of segments and extended the outer band for broader coverage. And the result of Essilor's upgrade? It's honestly pretty striking. By cranking up that asphericity and adding that 12th ring, the HALT MAX technology now generates a volume of non-focus light in front of the retina that is literally twice the depth of their first generation. It's essentially creating a much deeper, stronger signal to tell the eye, hey, slow down your axial growth. On the flip side, highest triple enhanced design, or TED, plays a slightly different targeting game. The MiYOSMART IQ defocus segments are now positioned much closer to the geometric center of the lens. Why? Well, a goal is to continuously activate the near peripheral retina, which is basically the sweet spot that is highly responsive to myopic defocus. Plus, that extended outer zone we mentioned means the signal stays active even if a kid happens to be wearing larger, trendier frames.
So that brings us to Section 3, Clinical Trial Efficacy, the hard data showdown.
Look, the physics are incredibly cool, but real-world clinical efficacy is what actually matters at the end of the day. But before we dive into the numbers, we absolutely have to contextualize the data sets because they're drawn from very different study parameters. Stellest 2.0 data comes from a crossover trial with 50 children ages 6 to 12. MiYOSMART IQ, however, is based on a much larger randomized controlled trial featuring 196 children spanning ages 4 to 12. You've got to keep these distinct sample sizes in the back of your mind as we start comparing percentages. Let's start with Stellest 2.0. This is their absolute standout metric. The upgraded HALT MAX technology slows eye growth 1.88 times more than the previous generation. To put that into hard clinical terms, that translates to a 46% relative reduction in axial length change over a one-year period compared to the first-generation lens. That is a massive deceleration in the physical lengthening of the eye. Now, let's stack that 12-month efficacy data side by side. As we just saw, Stellest 2.0 achieved a really solid 46% relative reduction in axial length change. Over on the MiYOSMART IQ side, the results are also incredibly compelling. In their 12-month data, the control group wearing standard single-vision lenses progressed by minus 0.53 diopters, meaning their eyes got more short-sighted, exactly as you'd expect. But the kids in the MiYOSMART IQ cohort, they actually showed a refraction change of plus 0.05 diopters. So progression wasn't just slowed. Technically speaking, there was a microscopic refractive improvement. And on top of that, MiYOSMART IQ demonstrated a 78% reduction in axial elongation. Which brings us to a truly staggering takeaway from the HOYA data. 9 in 10. 9 out of 10 children wearing MiYOSMART IQ in that trial had their myopia progression halted to the point where it was no longer clinically relevant during their first 12 months of wear. When you define clinically relevant as a change of minus 0.50 diopters or more, a whopping 90% of the kids in the study stayed completely below that threshold.
Okay, Section 4, Material and Range Specs. Practical application and aesthetics.
Because let's be real, all this amazing clinical efficacy only matters if the lenses actually survive the playground. Kids are tough on glasses. Essilor leans heavily into durability with Stellest 2.0, using their airwear polycarbonate material. This stuff is 40 times more impact-resistant, 16% lighter, and 21% thinner than a standard lens. It's essentially a literal shield for a child's eyes. HOYA, meanwhile, leans hard into precision aesthetics. MiYOSMART IQ uses a freeform 3D backside aspheric design. This reduces optical aberrations and actually cuts edge thickness by up to 10%, giving the lens a much flatter, more cosmetic profile, especially as prescriptions get higher.
And the prescription ranges? They are super accommodating now. Both lenses surprisingly cover plus spheres up to plus 2.00 diopters. This is fantastic news because it means pre-myopes or kids who are myopic in only one eye can now actually benefit from this protective tech. Stellest 2.0 goes all the way up to minus 12.00 diopters for myopia, while MiYOSMART stretches just a tiny bit further to minus 13.00 diopters. Both handle up to minus 4.00 diopters of astigmatism, with HOYA offering just a slightly higher prism accommodation.
What about lifestyle features? Essilor offers dedicated Stellest sun-tinted lenses, which is great since kids obviously spend a ton of time outdoors. HOYA went with an all-in-one approach, featuring the MiYOSMART IQ Chameleon photochromatic option, meaning the lenses adapt to changing sunlight automatically. Plus, HOYA introduced their premium SPARK coating. This makes the lens 50% more scratch-resistant than previous versions, and it has an anti-static repel shield that aggressively fights off water, dust, and fingerprints. If you have a kid, you know exactly how valuable and easy-to-clean lens truly is.
Which brings us to Section 5, the final verdict. Redefining the standard of care.
We've parsed the physical designs, the clinical outcomes, and the lifestyle specs. So what's the bottom line here? Both of these lenses offer exceptional, scientifically proven upgrades over their already impressive predecessors. Whether a practitioner decides to go with the 12-ring depth of Essilor's HALT MAX or the hyper-targeted plus 450 diopter power of HOYA's DIMS TED design, children are the ultimate winners. Honestly, both lenses have effectively redefined the standard of care in modern optometry.
Which really just leaves us with one massive provocative thought. If these second-generation lenses are already showing the ability to practically halt myopia progression and drastically reduce axial elongation in clinical trials today, what are the absolute limits of non-invasive myopia management? Seriously, what on earth is the third generation going to achieve? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive in The Explainer. Keep questioning the data and keep exploring the science.